Over the last month or so, I've been getting those targeted ads on Instagram for a new brand, a brand that when I went onto the website, I felt like I was getting deja vu. I had to do a little bit of a double take because I think you'll agree when you see the website and the ads that this looks very familiar. It looks very similar to a brand we're all very familiar with indeed. The brand is called Palome. And so because I was like, is this a scam? Is this one of those websites that's trying to imitate Sézane, but it's just really cheap knockoffs? It didn't seem like that. It wasn't really the vibe I was getting, but there's definitely some imitation going on here. So I was curious and I wanted to see, are these pieces really comparable to Sézane, or are these cheap knockoffs that we should avoid? The price point of Palome is sitting at around 2/3 of Sézane on average. The pieces are very comparable in looks and in composition, but I really wanted to give them a proper test out. So I've ordered 4 of their most popular pieces. They're pieces that all look very similar to popular iconic Sézane items, and we're gonna see, is this a scam, or actually could this be the new Sézane? So this is the box. The packaging was actually really nice. I didn't film the unboxing experience, but it did smell perfumed, again, similar to Sézane. It did come with a free gift, like Sézane as well. It did take a little while to arrive, and I did request next day shipping. However, it took like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 days to actually get to me. So that wasn't ideal, but the pieces are here and I'm very excited to try them on with you. As I said, the packaging is really pretty. This is not what it looked like. I've already unboxed it and kind of folded the pieces myself. It did come with a free scarf, so that was kind of, again, very similar to often what you get with Sézane. Very pretty, quite nice. This brand is an incredibly new brand. I was looking on Companies House and I'm pretty sure they were registered in either May or June 2025. So we're talking in the last couple of months. I looked on Trustpilot as well, and the first review I think was from May 2025. So I'll try on the clothes first. We can see what we think about the pieces, but stick around until the end because I have to say, when I was doing a little bit of digging on the Palome website, there were a few claims they were making that I think are kind of questionable. So I want to talk to you about those at the end. Now this brand is definitely giving me Quince vibes. If you're familiar with Quince, their whole kind of business strategy is to produce very similar clothes to other mid-range brands like Everlane, Sézane, even designer brands like they have a knockoff of the Loewe puzzle bag, but they do it at a much cheaper price, but it's all still kind of natural fabric, supposedly good quality. Quince is not available in the UK, so I've never tried them, but I have heard like mostly good reviews from people who have. This is giving me that vibe, but for French brands, specifically for Sézane. So they're producing items that look, on first impression, very, very similar to Sézane, but the price point is coming in at like half or 2/3 of the Sézane price, and yet the composition is the same. So the first item I have to show you will look very familiar if you like Sézane. This is it. I mean, honestly, I would not be able to tell the difference on first inspection. It very much looks like the Sézane Betty cardigan. I think on the Palome website this comes in 2 colours at the moment, this pink shade and then like a neutral oaty shade. So they don't have, this one thing, they have quite small collections at the moment, and I believe they're working on a fortnightly drop basis. So they drop new pieces once a fortnight on a Sunday, which also kind of seems like the old school way of doing it, the way Sézane did it originally before they became a little bit more fast paced. So this, I'm not sure what this is called. They don't call it the Betty cardigan, unsurprisingly. They call it the Sablon Cardigan. So this is the Sablon Cardigan. This is in a UK 12. I got everything in a UK 12. Wasn't sure how the sizing would be. I think they only do a UK 8 to a UK 14 at the moment, so the size range is not great. However, as I said, this brand is literally about 2 months old, and I do think sizing when you're just starting out is incredibly hard. So hopefully, if they do see success, they will expand their size range beyond that. But yes, I mean, it's 100% merino wool, so it's exactly the same composition as the Sézane Betty. I believe this one retails for £90, and I will put the price of the Betty on screen. I think it might be £130 on Sézane. So you can see it's coming in at like the 2/3 to 3/4 range. So yeah, shall I try this one on and we'll see what it looks like? Okay, first up we have the merino wool cardigan. On first impressions, I really like it. It's really nice. It feels really good quality. I love the colour. The buttons themselves are really nice quality as well. They feel sturdy. I like the colour of them and the tortoiseshell pattern. The sizing is a little bit bigger than the Betty. However, I do have this in a 12 and I used to own the Betty in a medium, which is more of a UK 10. So it's not going to be an exact kind of like for like size, but it does feel, even though I have got the bigger size, it does maybe feel a little bit longer than the Betty, because the Betty is definitely a cropped cardigan, whereas this feels more sort of hip length. So it's maybe a little bit longer. In terms of the feel of the material, very similar. I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference if I was blindfolded. It feels almost identical, maybe 5 to 10% thinner than the Betty from Sézane. It does feel, I don't know if it's just my imagination, but it does feel a little bit thinner, but still really nice quality. I did notice there is one difference on this one in that it does have buttons on the pockets on the chest. So it has the chest pockets, same as the Betty, but it actually does have buttons. I believe the Sézane Betty doesn't have any buttons there. It just has the buttons down the front. But it does have like the fold over cuffs here, which also the Betty has, and obviously the collar as well. So overall, I think for £90, considering the Betty is 130, and they're both, I believe they're both made in China. I'm going to talk about made in China in a second, well in the second half of the video, and the lack of transparency around that, because that's something I wanted to get into. But I believe they're both made in China, and so obviously a £40 price difference. I would say the quality feels pretty much exactly the same. I really like it. I think it's a really nice cardigan. This next piece is another piece of knitwear, and I had to order this one as well because the Gaspard cardigan is the most iconic piece from Sézane by a mile. And so when I saw this on the Palome website, I thought, I'm gonna have to compare the two. I have tried the Gaspard. This one, let me see what they call this. This is called the Meline Cardigan in Peony Pink. I also got this in a UK 12, and it is also pretty much the same composition as the Sézane Gaspard. There might be a slight difference in percentages, but basically it is the same kind of third mix of alpaca, mohair and nylon. I think maybe the Sézane one is polyester, but it's basically the same thing. It feels very similar. So I didn't say for the Betty cardigan, it feels very comparable on first impression. Obviously we tried it on, so you know what I think once I've tried it on, but on first touch it feels like a similar thickness and a similar softness, no itch from that one because it's merino wool. This one feels a little bit itchy like the Gaspard. It feels a very similar thickness. I mean, if I was touching this blindfolded, I would think it could be a Gaspard cardigan. The only thing I noticed that is different are the buttons. On this one by Palome, the buttons are the same material as the cardigan, so like a knitted, they're covered in a knitted fabric, the same colour, so they kind of blend in. Whereas I believe on the Gaspard, they're white. Are they like a white pearly button? Or did they change them? I can't remember, but I think they're like a plastic or a tortoiseshell effect button rather than fabric covered. So that's the second piece and the last piece of knitwear. This is the Meline cardigan, which is the second piece of knitwear. This one reminds me of the Gaspard, unsurprisingly. It has exactly the same feel to it, the same texture, the same thickness. It's quite a thin cardigan. If you've tried the Gaspard, you know it's like on the thinner side, and it is just a little bit itchy and scratchy. It's not my favourite. I definitely prefer the first one because I am more of a Betty lover over a Gaspard or a Barry lover. However, if you do love the Gaspard, then I would say this is very comparable. I would say it's even more comparable than the first one was to the Betty because the material feels exactly the same and the thickness feels the same. The sizing I think is also comparable. I've never tried the Gaspard in a 12 because I've always sized down in the Gaspard because it does run big, and I would say this kind of runs the same. Like this feels like a large in the Gaspard or a medium large. So sizing is comparable. The colour is gorgeous. Hopefully maybe they'll do it in a few more colours at some point, but it's really nice. Obviously the only difference are the buttons. So these are the fabric covered buttons. So they're a little bit more subtle and pared back than the Gaspard, but otherwise it is almost identical. And I think the price point, I need to double check the price point for this one, but I'll put them on screen, the comparison. Definitely cheaper anyway. I think it's probably about a third cheaper. So I don't know, if you're thinking about the Sézane Gaspard, you live in the UK, you like pink, I would probably recommend getting this one instead. The third piece, we have another iconic item from Sézane and the dupe, or the, I don't know, imitation piece of it. This is the denim shirt jacket in moss. and this is kind of similar to the Will jacket, which again is another really famous piece from Sézane. I think it's like the piece that really started it all for them. I think it's only available in this kind of sandy colour. This is not really my colour, so I'm not necessarily anticipating liking this on me just because of the shade, but it is like a nice neutral colour. I'm sure a lot of people would like this. Again, on first impressions, it feels very similar. It's got the big pockets, like the big deep pockets at the front that the Will jacket has. It is 100% cotton, I believe. Let me just check. Yeah, it's 100% cotton. It doesn't say if it's organic cotton, but I'll have a look on the website and put it on screen. Even like the tags, if you look at the care label, they kind of have Sézane vibes. They're made of a different material, but like the way that they're laid out and the font, and even the things they say, I mean, I know these are all going to be quite similar brand to brand, but yeah, they're definitely like giving me Sézane vibes as well. I thought that was interesting. I also got this in a size UK 12, so we will see the fit. And also another thing to mention about the Palome pieces is that they say one of their kind of unique standout features is that all of their clothing has a pink stitch in it somewhere. This one is at the back, but kind of underneath the collar. And apparently that was done accidentally originally, but they liked it, so they kind of kept it on as a signature, you know, stamp of the brand. Okay, this is the denim jacket, the Will jacket, the chore jacket, whatever you want to call it. This also feels a little bit longer, similar to the first cardigan. I feel like this is running a bit bigger and a bit longer than the Sézane version. I have tried the Will jacket. I've tried it, I've tried the like a tartan one, and I've also tried just a regular one a long time ago. But from memory, from kind of what I remember about the jacket and about Sézane in general, it feels identical. Honestly, it really does feel the same. I actually feel like this colour is okay on me, you know? Maybe I do suit this colour after all. I do think I need it. Again, I think it's a little bit too long for me. You can see it is actually really quite long and oversized, and I prefer my jackets a little bit cropped. However, if you're looking for something like this, you're looking at the Will jacket, I do think this is a really good alternative, and I will leave the price differences on screen. Obviously the composition is exactly the same, it's 100% cotton. The buttons are the same buttons that were on the first cardigan. Actually, no, they're not, they're smaller. So they're smaller buttons, but they're the same design and sort of feel to them. They're really nice buttons, they feel really good quality. And it has these big pockets here, exactly like the Will. I don't actually love that about the Will, just because I find that if you look at these jackets on Vinted, like secondhand ones, the pockets often become a little bit misshapen. I think just through gravity and kind of putting things in them, they kind of tend to sag a little bit over time. So it's something I don't love about the Will, but if it's something you like about it, I know a lot of people like it because you can put so much in them. They're perfect for like dog walks and things like that where you need just your keys and stuff. It has very similar pockets. So yeah, I think overall it's a great jacket. For the price point, I think it's really reasonable, and a very comparable jacket to the Will. Okay, and finally, I've saved the best piece till last. It is definitely not the weather for a trench coat at the moment, although, you know, September will roll around before we know it. But I had to try this because A, it was definitely the piece that spoke to me the most, and B, it is incredibly similar to the Clyde trench, but I think it's £90 cheaper. So I think this retails for 185, and the Clyde, I believe, is 275. This is the Battersea trench coat, again in the colour moss, so it is like a neutral kind of coolish toned beige, very similar to this version of the Clyde. I would say I've actually tried this one, and I would say from memory the colour is almost identical. The composition again is the same, I believe, the same as I know the Clyde, the composition varies depending on the colour, but the cotton Clydes, this is the same. It's 100% cotton, and the lining is also cotton. This one though is probably the most unique and the least of like a copy, because if you look at the lining, it is very pretty and very different from the Clyde. So this was why I really was drawn to this coat, because it has all of the features of the Clyde, which I love. I do love the Clyde. But I thought that this lining was at least different, and it felt like it had more of like a signature Palome feel to it, which makes it less of a copy, less of a dupe, which I'm not massively a fan of brands copying like piece for piece identical, because I just think it kind of lacks creativity. We don't need more of the same clothes. but at least this lining really is quite special. It was designed supposedly by the founder herself, and I really like it. I think I actually prefer it to the lining of the Clyde. It's a little bit more unique, interesting, rather than just being like a classic tartan check. It does have that checked background in the beige, black, white and blue, but it also has these very pretty flowers over the top, and I did like that. And it has the same kind of buttons as the Clyde, these tortoiseshell buttons, and I also got this in the UK 12, and it also has the pink stitch just here. I don't know if you can see that, but just there it's got that pink stitch, which is the signature of the brand. So that's the final piece. Obviously I'll try that one on now, and then we will come back and we will round up my thoughts, and I'll show you a couple of things on the website that I was kind of questioning, to be honest. Okay, I'm gonna make this quick because it's the middle of July and I have a trench coat on. I'm very hot. So this is the final piece. This is the Battersea trench, I think it's called. I'm just gonna roll up the sleeve so we can admire the lining, because I really do think that's the best part about this trench coat. On first impressions, this feels again very comparable to the Clyde trench, coming in at £90 cheaper. Look at that lining, it's so pretty. £90 cheaper than the Clyde, the same composition, 100% cotton. I love that the lining is also cotton. You know, so many brands make that polyester or viscose, so it's impressive that they've managed to make it cotton at this price point, which is quite cheap, to be honest, for a really high quality trench coat. The buttons are the same as in the first cardigan this time, so the proper big tortoiseshell buttons, very similar to the Clyde, and it's honestly it's the same, apart from the lining. The lining obviously is different, and I just absolutely love it. I think it's so pretty. I just think it's so special and unique. The Clyde is lovely, but you do see other trench coats with tartan linings. It's not, I mean, it's kind of a Burberry, signature Burberry look, isn't it? So it's not as unique as this one. I've never seen a lining like this, and I do love it. I kind of wish, I wish this on the Sézane one as well. I wish they'd popped the lining under the collar. I love that touch. I have that on my Petite Studios trench. The tartan lining is under the collar, and I think it's such a nice touch. I wish they'd done that here so you could see more of it, because you can't really, I mean, obviously you can't really see the inside when you're wearing it. You can just see the cuffs, so it would have been nice to have a little bit more of it. But other than that, I cannot complain. It's beautiful. The fit is very similar. I did own the Clyde in a 12, and it feels identical. The length feels the same. I thought this one was going to be a little bit shorter, because for some reason on the website on Palome it looked shorter than the Clyde, but actually it's the same length, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed. Honestly, like, I'm considering keeping this one because I just love the lining so much, and I don't have a trench coat in this beige, like classic trench coat colour, so I'm just going to try and show you a full length so you can get an idea of the length of it. Can you see? Hopefully you can see me. So it is like, it's coming kind of midway down my calf, which is the same as the Clyde on me. So I would say they're pretty much the same length. And yeah, the fit is like oversized like the Clyde. It's got the pockets like the Clyde. It is really, really similar and really lovely, actually. So those are all the pieces. We've tried them on. Honestly, my first impressions are I do really like these items. I think generally the quality feels very, very comparable to Sézane. I honestly can't really notice any difference. I would say the only difference I notice maybe is in the Betty cardigan. It feels maybe like the tiniest bit thinner, and I think it does run longer. But other than that, honestly, if I was blindfolded, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They feel very comparable. I'm not, as I said, I'm not a huge fan of brands just copying. I mean, obviously Palome aren't saying this is what they're doing. They're not going out to say that they're an imitation of Sézane, but it's quite clear from the photography, from the marketing, from the pieces that they offer at the moment. Even some of the other items on their website. I mean, look at this top, for example. I'm sure there's more examples that look very similar to Sézane pieces. It's quite clear that that's what they're going for. And I understand from a business perspective that if you see something that's incredibly successful in your industry, then going with kind of like along that same line, there's clearly appetite for that, and especially because the prices at Palome are considerably less. They are, you know, they're not just 10% less, they're 30, 40, maybe even 50% less in some cases. Then I'm sure there will be, you know, a market for this brand, and I am expecting them to grow. I just hope that they go along the lines more of the trench coat with that beautiful lining and some of the more unique pieces, and kind of develop their own style and their own signature and their own aesthetic rather than just copying another successful brand. There were a couple of things on the website when I was reading the About Us and the FAQs that kind of I questioned, to be honest. One of them was when it comes to returns. They were saying, why do you discourage returns? So they are talking about how returning clothing causes incredible waste, and they keep their prices low and their material quality high because their members return clothing at less than a quarter of the rate of most women's wear brands. Firstly, I'm not sure where they've come up with that figure, 25%. Less than a quarter of the rate of most women's wear brands. I mean, you've been a brand for 1 to 2 months. People have been ordering from you for what? I don't know, 2 to 3 months. How are you actually collecting this data? Another thing they said was that they suggest if something doesn't fit quite right, they suggest if you buy something that isn't quite the right size, please consider gifting it to a friend rather than sending it back. I mean, I would love if I could afford to do that. But if something doesn't fit quite right, I mean, maybe on the off occasion I would gift it to a friend, but I'm going to want my money back. And the reality is that you have to allow returns in the UK. It's illegal not to. So of course they do allow returns. But just to say that and put that onus on the customer, I think, I don't know. I think it's a complicated topic. Obviously returns do create waste. They do create CO2 emissions, like with all the packages going back and forth. But I think it's really predominantly on the brand to try to minimize returns. And to be fair to Palome, they are offering customer reviews on their website, which is one thing that Sézane don't do. So I do like that. I do like that you can actually read reviews for most of the items before you purchase. So you can see if people are saying it runs big, it runs small, or the quality doesn't feel good. So that's something I think can help minimize returns. But I think that's what they should be focusing on, rather than putting the onus on the customer and saying, oh, if something doesn't fit, just don't return it, gift it to a friend. Most people in reality aren't going to do that and can't afford to do that either. It also says that when you're done with an item, you'll find that our resale prices are very strong. Again, I'm not sure where they're getting this data from. They've been a brand for a couple of months. How many people have actually gone on yet to resell their items? How do they know that their resale prices are strong? Are they basing that on the fact that Sézane generally has quite a good resale value? I just think that it's kind of a lie, isn't it? I mean, where have you got that from? Like, what studies have you done to show that your resale prices are very strong? I'd love to know if you're watching Palome, but it just feels like a little bit of a cop-out because I mean, I went onto Vinted and there was one item from Palome on Vinted and it hadn't sold. And I just can't imagine many people, if any, have gone on to sell their items yet because it's such a new brand. So I question that as well. The final thing I thought that was a little bit fishy about them was that they put this real emphasis on the fact that they are designed in Paris and London. And it seems like the founder has worked and lived in both Paris and London, and I think it's a UK-based company, so a lot of their design does happen in the UK. So that kind of makes sense. They are very much marketing themselves as a Parisian brand, but they are actually a UK company. So I think she's trying to market it as a Parisian brand, but it isn't a Parisian brand. It's a British brand with a Parisian style. And I feel like the waters are a little bit murky there. The other thing I noticed is that they don't say on the items where they're made. They specify that they are designed in Paris and London, and they go on and on about how that they're designed in Paris and London, but they don't tell you where the items are made. And that, to me, I'm all about transparency, and I think a lot of customers and people in general want transparency from brands these days. So to not put that information on the website, when you go onto the pieces themselves, all of the pieces that I bought today, the 4 items, are all made in China. I don't have anything against made in China. A lot of my favourites from Sézane, I think the Betty is made in China. I might be wrong, but a lot of the pieces that I love from Sézane are made in China. And so I don't have a problem with made in China, but I do have a problem with hiding that and trying to kind of disguise that around this narrative that everything is designed in London or designed in Paris. It might be, but you have to also disclose that it's made in China. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. They currently are only shipping in the UK. That's something I forgot to mention. I presume if they do see success and they do grow, they will expand where they ship to, but at the moment, as they've just started out, they are just shipping in the UK. Are you a fan of this? Will you be trying them? Do you think them offering very similar pieces to Sézane at less prices is good? Would you be encouraged to shop there because of that? Or does it put you off a little bit and you feel like it's a little bit copycat and a little bit like, I don't know, not scammy, but just like get some creativity, you know? And I think they have the potential to develop more of a signature style, a signature brand, a personal brand that is less a copy of Sézane and more their own individual identity. Maybe it just takes a little bit of time and we need to be patient with them, but generally the quality of the pieces I'm actually really impressed with. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do give it a like if you did, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I will see you very soon in my next video.